evening from San Antonio. My name is Harry. I'm just coming in from a soccer tournament, so sorry for the hair. Sorry for the last minute scheduling. Jonathan, I know you've been working hard. You got show notes. I know you did your article last night on the bluish moon. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Good that we're getting the rain, I guess. Hopefully it didn't come down too quickly in some areas, although I know it did because we were getting flood advisories, but I don't know. No
So I
rain
have
is
I have a
not
question here
not
for you.
ideal either.
AJ's starting to be on Pep out. Is that something that should be going on with Man City? AJ was upset that they lost to I guess Brighton. I guess is who they lost to.
Yeah,
For it here, AJ's like they got good players. Maybe it's the coaching.
it's almost like a disconnect between Pep and the players sometimes, I think. I know they actually did a shuffle of obviously Pep is still there, but they shuffled some of his assistants. So maybe it's still taking time for them to create the right link between him and the players to communicate exactly what he wants and be that intermediary. But sometimes it's like, what's the team doing? Last week against Spurs, I still saw some of the same defensive fragility, even in the first match against Wolves. And today, from what I saw against Brighton, at least in the second half, they kind of just let Brighton take control of the match. They were the aggressors in the last half an hour or so, and they turned the match around on its head.
Well, our team is not an aggressor as far as SAFC, but we'll introduce Rafa. I see you're wearing Real Madrid, Club America, Yankees, Dodgers. You know the name brand kit here. How are you doing, my friend?
I hate the keys on the.
But you love Draw Madrid and Club America.
Hey, we didn't draw this weekend. Somebody did. Actually,
I'm
someone got
assuming you're
help.
talking about Barcelona. So,
Someone got help to get a draw.
uh,
Yeah, just enjoying the rain. I mean, it's nice to get the rain, but not the flood warnings and all that.
dude,
That we can do without.
it sucked driving home just because you couldn't hardly see. People had their hazards on. I was glad I took the truck because it would have sucked being in the Malibu for it here. But with the truck, we were able to power through. Good weekend for Premier. AJ had 3 goals, so exciting for him. Did the Jorge 3 PKs, 3 for 3. So good for them. Tough matches playing up, but season's just starting out. Unlike SAFC, people better be paying attention. The season's coming here. So let's start with some player announcements here. From Timbers 2, Kyle Linhares. What can you tell us, J Check?
Yeah, let me pull up what I'd said when he was announced earlier this week on Wednesday, because I forgot to add it to the show notes. But forward, so it's interesting because I think in the headline of the press release, Linhares was announced as a forward, but then in the subhead they mention or they describe him as a winger. So obviously, the two are not exclusive. He can be both, but describing him as a winger, I think, is really an indicator of how he's supposed to be sort of the Paredes replacement. When that injury happened, not only was SAFC suddenly missing a defender or an attacker who had really been coming into his own, had really been hitting his stride mid-season, but really that was kind of the only guy that SAFC had who could really use his pace, stretch the back line a bit. So it's really important just to get a player with that kind of profile in. In terms of stats, he's gotten 12 goals and 10 assists in 47 appearances for the Timbers 2 team since the start of last season. Uh, Apologies here. friend is calling me. But anyway, so the way I saw that, decent numbers. We'll see how much of a step up USL Championship is for him. Got his first appearance this past weekend. I don't know that we can really read too much into it.
And then this is coming off Patino being signed recently for that. Rafa, your thoughts on the new additions as far as with Kyle and Patino?
With Kyle, I guess I saw some video on him with the Timbers too. He's a good player. I mean, he can put balls in the net. Has some speed. That's what we're lacking. Like Jonathan mentioned, we need someone to kind of cover Paredes' spot. He's young, athletic. That's what we need. A good addition, and we'll see how. Like you said, we'll talk about it. The first game with us against Detroit, but hopefully here on out to finish the season. He does have to play a certain amount of games in order to make like the playoffs, like kind of we talked about the last.
It's 5.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to be in the roster. Yeah. And then as far as Patino, like I said, the Mr. October of the USL, so hopefully he'll get it going after some little inactivity. But like I said, that was an area we were lacking. We're part up front provide that.
So my thing on here, and this is just my speculation, he wasn't alone like I think a lot of people thought. He was an actual mutually terminated from Portland, who let him walk. He signed with SanAntonio FC. They didn't release the details, so I don't. Usually, if they say it's a multi-year deal, they will say that here. But I have a hard time believing that that he doesn't at least have an option for a multi-year deal, for the remainder of this year and then next year, pending how things work out. Just because he's giving up the option that he had with Portland. But that's just me. The other big news that came out: SanAntonio FC defender Alex Crognale had successful surgery to repair left shoulder injury, which he sustained against Hartford. The team will provide updates about his return as appropriate. Jonathan, your thoughts on the injury to Crognale and your speculation?
Yeah, I mean, this confirms what you could kind of tell. I don't know if we ever really necessarily nailed down exactly what the injury was, but you could tell the way he put his shoulder into that challenge in midfield on August 20th that it looked like it was something up there. Now we get confirmation he's undergone surgery. The thing that I found interesting is usually when SAFC gives these injury updates, it'll be kind of like Andres Paredes sustained an injury. He'll undergo surgery in the coming weeks and will miss the rest of the season. Technically, SAFC didn't say anything about Crognale being out for the season, so perhaps there is a hope that he can come back. With this being an arm injury, maybe it's just a little easier for him to work his way back to it. But
I disagree with that being a center back. Maybe Rafa can kind of explain that a little bit more, but shoulders and stuff like that, defending in the box, I think that might. I know he doesn't need it for wear and tear on the legs. Don't get me wrong, but defending wise, I do wonder how that impacts.
It was I think what separated shoulder. Did they get into that?
They just said left shoulder.
So
yeah, left shoulder injury.
To me, if that's a surgery, it's a separated shoulder. That's going to take about possibly a month, maybe even more, to come back, and that's something they're going to have to really kind of consider before the signing deadline is get another body in for just in the meantime for him. Like I said, we're down to only two center backs. One of them goes down. You go back to a 3-back like you mentioned, Harry, last night. We play better than that. But I think, like I said, hopefully, like I say, he gets a speedy recovery for that. From that, basically popping that thing sucker back in, and but it's gonna take a while. It could be like I said, a month and a half.
Evening, Gabe. Hopefully you and the family are safe for that here. Next up, injury report here, Jonathan. I know it'll probably take a half hour to go through it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of changes from the previous week, you had Nelson Flores Blanco removed, Jake LaCava added, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It stays as long as it was. And of course, Lucio Beron was suspended after being sent off the previous week. The thing that I will say is kind of interesting, and this was not in the injury report, but it was in the pregame interviews we did on Thursday after SAFC training. Yamosa said at the time that he expected Blanco, Luke Hawkinson, Juan Sebastian Osorio, and Abdi Salim to be back in about 10 days, he said. So at this point, it's in about a week. So I don't know if he's necessarily expecting them back for this next Saturday's match, but around that weekend, the start of that next week is at the latest when, based on his estimates, you would expect them to be reintegrating back into the team. I mean, I'm trying to think if I've seen. I know for a few weeks I've seen Juan Sebastian Osorio. He's been at training, still doing fitness work, stuff like that. I know he's there because I'll give him a little shout out here. He's one of the guys who will always come over and shake your hand, say, hey, how you going? How you doing? Thanks for coming. But yeah, so SAFC needs these.
Coach Kano's saying hurt feelings. Add hurt feelings to the injury report. So it's
not
hope
on the
Coach
list.
Kano is doing well, and hopefully the lady, was it Canyon Cougarettes, I believe is what it is, are getting whipped into shape from Coach Kano for that here. Into the lineup, I guess. You mentioned here Diego, Juan, Kyle steps right in. Mo, Landry, Walker start. Jorge, Harvey, Alexis, Mitch, Jimmy, Daniel. I asked the chat, does this mean Daniel's ahead of Richard now? Rafa's like, slow your roll, Harry. Jonathan, your thoughts on there and on the bench, just to kind of make sure. Sanchez, Gomez, Buckmaster, Soto, Nicky, Dimitri, and Patino for that here. So, Jonathan, your thoughts on the lineup? Anything stand out, kind of catch you off guard?
Like I said, I mean, Linhares going straight into the starting lineup when he had joined. From what it sounds like, he had only sort of linked up with the team this week, I believe. So interesting to see him thrown straight in. Maybe Yamosa just kind of wanted to throw something on there, see if it stuck. I don't know, in the early stages, we can get into this. Maybe he made somewhat of a difference. I think at one point he was mentioned as perhaps getting a shot, but in the end, the announcers said, oh, no, that was someone else. As far as the debate in goal, I mean, look, changing goalkeepers barring an injury is not something that's done lightly. So if it's 2 matches in a row for Nemani now, I feel like until he has a major screw up, the spot is his.
Gabriel, it was nice not seeing the goalie look like a safety roaming around the back. Our goalkeeping coach, your thoughts?
What game was he watching? Because I saw it on the big screen there at the Rock. I mean, Jonathan kind of pointed out if Danny does start the next game, that says something. But also, this is a tough game too, going into Detroit. And Harry, you've been there. You said that was real tough. So, yeah, I was a little surprised because, like I said, this is a really meaningful game on the road where you do have to get points. Like I said, to see when I saw the roster, like I saw him, I was like, "Ooh, he's rolling the dice here," But like I said, you have to have confidence in your keepers, whether it's your backup or your starters. With that, you just have to go roll with it. So he did well yesterday. There's some things that I do have to point out, but like I said, it's a surprise he was there. And then, like I said, then the other surprise having another academy players start again for back-to-back weeks. Landry's got two straight starts, so
And he went long. That was the thing that kind of caught me off guard. Is he went what 80 something minutes
yeah,
before he was subbed out. I know you were calling. I believe it was for Soto in our
yeah,
chat. Just you know, me and Royce were kind of doing kind of a watch party, just kind of venting back and forth. But you made the comment that you would have liked to seen Soto in a little bit earlier because you I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you thought that they were going after him.
yeah. He started well. I mean, he did some good things and so forth. But then, like I said, you can't blame him, I guess, for the handball there because it led to the goal. But it is what it is. But I started seeing little things that they started Detroit started exploit his inexperience, and I was just kind of like wondering, okay, when is Yamosa gonna sub him out? Put in Soto, or you're gonna put in Nikki? One of the two. You do need. If you're gonna try to run out with a point, you put some experience on there because he was they were really going into that area he was at, and then also he was starting to kind of make, I was saying, a lot of mistakes, just like I said, inexperience. Inexperience was catching up. So, but I mean, that's like how much faith he also had, and finally he pulled the trigger to have the sub up, brought in Nikki.
So, but before we get too far down the road here, according to the show notes, Jonathan says solid start from SAFC. A couple early balls behind, but offsides, and then faded again. Jonathan, you want to explain your show notes a little bit?
I mean, do you disagree?
No.
Okay,
well,
then.
I told you on this game it wasn't a memorable game. Like just I think what the previous one was Monterey Bay, right? Where we're just like, dude, I wasted 2 hours. This one I wouldn't say I wasted 2 hours because I thought it was a competitive match. It was kind of, Detroit City always makes it, always has. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say it. Yeah, I'll say always has a good crowd, even when it's cold, the people are there. The issue at Detroit City is the fans are right on you. There's no space on the sidelines, like especially where the players are sitting. There's really no space. It's the fans are on you, then the field's right there. It's a great environment, and I know they're coming with a new stadium in a couple of years. But just to me, I think I put in put in there that it's 4.5 games since SAFC has scored a goal run of play. They did score this one here on a PK on the 21st minute. Handball on former SAFC Dioff inside the box. Jorge converts a good penalty. John said ends the scoreless run at 363 minutes for that here. So, any thoughts? It was a valid handball. I don't think anybody can really dispute the handball or the call.
I do dispute the first goal that was annulled from us. I thought that was a great play. I don't know where the offsides was on that, unless it was on the previous play, on the pass, on the wing, that they just waited to raise the flag. But you got to give credit to Neville. He did give a good cross on that, and that's what we're lacking right there. If we have more plays like that, for opportunities like kind of we had in the beginning, we'll be able to we'll get off this funk and start scoring some goals, and not especially now that you have Patino. He'll bury a few of those. But like Jonathan mentioned, we started kind of getting away from that. We're regressive. We're pressing them, and that's the thing you need to do with Detroit. You have to press them, make them uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, we score the goal. Then we sit back instead of keeping the pressure.
I think that's my biggest frustration with Coach Lamosa is it seems like he gets up a goal and then he just, whether it's the style or the team, it's like they let up a little bit, and then they just absorb and absorb and absorb and absorb, and it's just not healthy. 66-minute handball. Landry Walker just outside the box. Excellent free kick from Chloe Hernandez Foster up in the upper top left corner. Will probably be a goal of the week candidate, possibly. Um, I kind of felt bad for Landry because it was one of those things where his arm was in the wrong spot. It wasn't anything intentional. Wasn't anything along those lines. Just a little bit unlucky. Your thoughts on it, Jonathan?
First of all, just going back to the team sort of going up a goal and fading. This is SAFC putting together a complete 90-plus minute performance is something the team has been talking about for a month now, and particularly away, we've seen 2 of the last 3 matches where SAFC gets a goal in the first half, but then lets the home team take over, lets them control the match, be on the front foot a lot more. SAFC pegged back a lot more. Happened in Las Vegas, certainly happened last night in Detroit. Obviously, there were no goals in the Monterey Bay game, but it turned out that in the second half, Monterey Bay was yet again the aggressor, and they even said at the end of the match, we'll probably feel hard done because they had the better claim to all 3 points. So particularly away, it's just really weird. Goal or no goal, SAFC is fading in these matches for whatever reason. As far as really either goal, handballs happen. I don't think Doof or Walker meant anything by it. I don't know about Walker, but I know with Doof, the commentators were saying he wasn't really protesting. He kind of, I guess, was like, yeah, my hand, even if I didn't mean it to be there, it was there. Ball struck it. Okay, it's a penalty. Same with Landry. I doubt he would have protested it much, and maybe you can look at it and say a more experienced player may have had his hand elsewhere. I don't even really remember where exactly it was at, but Jorge breaks the scoreless streak from the penalty spot for SAFC. Great free kick from Kobe Hernandez Foster, and Detroit was pushing for another goal, never got it, so SAFC escapes with a point.
Rafa, your thoughts on how the game ended?
Yeah, we started waving the white flag, after the first goal, and just there's no reason for us to be trying to absorb their pressure. Even the commentators mentioned, it was no secret, Detroit is not very good at defending the press. They're very uncomfortable, and if you saw that in the first half when we were pressing them, they were having a lot of trouble getting that ball out, out of their area. And I think we kept up with it, I think their defense would have kind of faded away, faded out, worn them out, and that would probably open the floodgates to more opportunities, especially once we put in Patino, with Nicky. It would have allowed more things to happen, but we have just that mindset as like, hey, we get a goal, we need to defend. No, you don't. You need to go after and get some more. One goal is not going to do it. You need to get at least 3. That's the mindset you have to get. And I don't know. I'm sure Yamosa preaches that, but it's the players. They're out there on the field. They're gonna have to put more effort. And that's the thing is, if you're gonna talk the talk and walk the walk about playing a full 90 minutes, you didn't show that. You have not shown that. I haven't seen a complete game since early July. So this game coming up, can you finally get out of that funk and do a complete game and completely dominate, which they can. They have it in them, but we'll see.
Yeah, if I could just chime in there, it's really interesting because a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember after what match, but Chiklikava had said something to that effect is like, okay, we can say it all we want, but at some point we need to prove it. We need to actually put together a complete performance. As the saying goes, actions speak louder than words, and still hasn't really happened. So I don't know what they are actually meaning when they say that, because they don't seem to be taking it to heart.
I don't. To me, I'm just kind of frustrated with one, how we always try to play out the back, because we're still not comfortable on it. What, season started March? 5 months later, 6 months later.
But Harry, what's the issue about that? And if you watch the tape, every time we play in the back, where the hell's our midfield at to give them support to receive?
But that's the issue. We don't.
That's the thing. I mean, I meant, like I said, I texted like with a text last night. Our midfielders are not going back to give them support to receive the ball, and
Our
especially
forwards are coming too far back.
yes, and also when we defend, when we lose the ball, we're leaving a lot of gaps, and that's how they're able to sneak in on some of those goals against us. We got lucky a couple times that they took bad angles on shots, but if you watch the tape, when we're playing in the back, your holding mids and your attacking mids need to drop and receive the ball so you can go up and start pushing it forward. This side-to-side thing, and I'm sure everyone's getting sick of it, that's the result of that because your midfielders are not there presenting themselves to get open to play the ball to them and start pushing forward.
Final thoughts on the game. I think you had something that you just pointed out, Jonathan.
Yes, I added it to the notes just now. Particularly the way this match was ending, we haven't referenced it yet, but it got feisty in that last 10, 15 minutes.
Very, chippy.
And I mean, just looking at the match center, does anyone want to take a guess? Let's see. These are all in stoppage.
Patino doing Patino things after the games.
Does anyone want to take a guess how many yellow cards there were in stoppage time?
I think 3
between both teams.
4?
No,
3 or 4. 3 or 4.
I would say 6 or 7.
9, according to the USL Match Center. 4 for Detroit, 5 for SAFC. So, I mean, it's to the point where if you've ever looked at the Match Center, you'll see sometimes they have to kind of add, you can't necessarily have like a yellow and then a yellow right on top of it, so they'll sort of move it down to the next line. They had to go down 4 lines for both Detroit and SAFC to stack these yellow cards farther and farther away from sort of the center line. So, it got really chippy, and I remember watching it and thinking, at this rate, someone's going to get sent off again. It'll be the 3rd straight league match for SAFC that they have somebody sent off. I don't know how. It's a minor miracle, but didn't happen this time. No red card. As far as I'm aware, no one should be suspended next week.
No,
maybe someone on accumulation warning.
No,
but
I checked that because I thought
the commentators mentioned that how we're lucky that we didn't get a red card from all the yellow cards.
Well, it was crazy, but do you guys know how many red cards we have on the season?
I think we have 6.
No, for the season, or not red cards. I mean yellow cards.
We got 70.
Yeah, something like 70 yellows.
Yeah,
nearest one is Tulsa and Vegas at 64, Miami at 63, 62. So we most likely could go a game yellow card free, and would most likely still be in the lead. Some things change with Marcina gone. Some things don't. With it.
Definitely not getting the fair play award after this season.
No.
So, I was talking to Royce. And him and I both. Well, I won't put his name in here. I feel that SanAntonio FC is showing more fight after the game against the opponent than actually during the game, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of it comes down with frustration. Maybe it's a locker room issue. Like, I liked how Mo came up and defended. I forget who got fouled. And the Detroit stood over him and was kind of mocking him, even though it was a legit foul. and Mo came up, and then the fracas started for that here. But to me, it seems like they'd rather argue and fight than actually show that same spirit on the pitch. And I know it's just not me, and I'm probably not wording it correctly, but I think if you go social media, just water cooler stuff along those lines, the in-game fight isn't matching with what we're seeing post-game or in the late sessions along those lines here. Is that kind of a fair assessment? Either Jonathan or Rafa, is something you guys are seeing as well?
I definitely get what you mean. I don't think you're wording it terribly. It makes sense where you have these players that are like physically fighting, and in some cases it's to defend a teammate, stuff like that. But they're getting frustrated, they're getting impassioned. But let your play do the talking. If you have that energy at the end of the match, well, where was it in stepping up, trying to make challenges, trying to win the ball back, trying to relieve some of the pressure that's been on the team, particularly, like I was saying earlier, in the second half on the road in recent weeks? Where was that fight earlier? You could have relieved some of this pressure. You could have maybe gotten another goal. You could have prevented the goals that you conceded. You could have prevented being under pressure for, being stuck in your half, sometimes even your final third, essentially, for minutes on end, for half an hour at times. I mean, why are you waiting? Why are you holding on to that? You're trying to burn it all at the end, and it's not really working. It's not doing anything good for you. It's just going to get you more yellow cards.
Rolf, as a coach, and I know you're not a USL level coach, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure even at the academy or club level, you've seen it. Like, at the field today. I saw two teams post game get into shoving matches where people from the parents were pulling them off, coaches were pulling the two teams apart. Things do get chippy. Some of it's the referee allows it a little bit. Some of it just cooler heads don't prevail. But from a coach aspect here, kind of, I don't think Lamosa's doing a bad job, but he's not. There's something off. Whether it's substitution, them not listening, the frustration level that we're seeing. From a coaching perspective, is there anything you can do?
I think just going with the lineup. Sometimes you have to make some statements.
But with all the injuries, you
yeah,
really have that option.
That's the thing there. But you gotta stick to the plan. May have to modify it a bit, but you also gotta recognize who out there is actually making an effort. And it also reflects on what the effort's done at practice. If you see that effort on practice, is it going to equate to what you're going to see on the field? And that's something I remember what I tell my players is like, what you do here is going to show me what you're going to do in the game. If you're not going to execute in the game, then your play time is going to be limited. And I know there's a lot of frustration. Some are not frustrated, but hey, you're a pro. You're getting paid to do this. Like I said, Coach mentions it right there.
Frustration or no frustration, they're pros. If you're constantly having that much energy for extracurriculars after the match, we're doing it wrong.
So there's no, like I said, they have a job to do. They need to execute it, especially in the game plan. If you're not going to give the effort, then hey, give somebody else the opportunity. I'm sure there's guys there on the bench. They're chomping at the bit. They want that opportunity to prove themselves that, hey, I should be the one that's be starting, and I'll give you that effort. So
on the effort part, here's the issue that I have. There's probably and I'm not going to name names because I don't think that's fair. There's probably 2 or 3 that you can consistently see that are giving effort every game. And then there's games. Well, I'll name one person, and he came on as a sub, and I'm going to toss Royce under the bus on this one here. Royce is like with Buckmaster. Some games he's like all league level. Some games you're like, why is he out there? And I think that's the problem with this team. And Jonathan kind of hinted at that, had it, and I think who else was in it? Coach Kano. The team has failed to put together two solid halves since early June. That's been the only consistency down the stretch. Is like you've got two or three that are game in, game out, but the other players, you don't know who's on, who's off for either an entire game or maybe for a half or a quarter. And that's the part that and I think that's the biggest frustration on this team, is you can see this team has talent, but this team cannot, whether it's a mental thing, whether it's injuries, whether it's coaching, whether it's tactics, whether it's personalities, whether it's just unlucky, because they have been unlucky in some cases. Just it's the biggest frustration I have with this team, because you can see that you can see it's there, but yet this team cannot put itself in a position to click. At least at this point. There's 9 games left after this.
But effort also comes into actually executing your game plan, and also your technique. And what I'm seeing a lot is a lot of bad and lazy tech. That's causing a lot of these. And you saw a lot of those bad passes is because it's bad technique. They're not.
But is that coaching?
That's coaching, but also it goes back to practice too. Are you the way you practice is what it's gonna reflect on the field. That's something I always preach with coaching. If you play, like I said, I always taught when I did practices. My main thing is what you see what I do here in practice, you can reflect into the game. We always had game style practices, and if you do a lazy pass and this and that, it's gonna come back and bite you in the butt. And what I've been seeing these last few games is like they do something wrong, like a bad pass and this and that, and then they don't try to correct it. Or if I lose the ball, and this is something I always tell my players, if you don't go back and get that ball in 3 seconds, then you're gonna be sitting on the bench. We lose the ball, we're gonna go back and go get after it, or try to stop the play. And it's a lot of the fundamentals that should be there are not there, and they're not. And like I said, they're professionals. They should be executing a lot of this. Yes, we are gonna have mistakes, but not the type of mistakes that we're seeing right now because of the lack of this late in the year and a lack of effort as far as being lazy.
It's the same mistakes that we've had all year long. Final thoughts on Detroit, because there is one other topic I want to get, and then we'll do a wrap up, so that way we're well out by an hour for that here. Any final thoughts on Detroit? I'll go first. Detroit's a tough place to play. If you'd have told me at the start of the season getting a road point, I'm like, hey, that would have been a good result. I thought it was a winnable game. However, the mode that, and I'll let Jonathan follow up because he has another fun fact to give as well. I thought the point on the road was solid. If you would have said, hey, Harry, going into Detroit after our performance, you walk away with a point, I'd been like, okay. Now I'm like, Jonathan, your turn. Final thoughts on Detroit City.
Yeah, just building off of that, I would almost say the Monterey Bay match was the more winnable one, and arguably that's probably the one where I think SAFC did perhaps worse. I mean, it was the end of a busy week, but didn't really see much from them, at least in this Detroit match. They ended that scoreless run. They had a few chances earlier in the match, so it was at least a little something where you say, okay, they figured something out. Something is maybe starting to get the wheels rolling again, maybe starting to click. But like you referenced, I can throw a little fun fact in here for those who didn't read my recap. SAFC now 7 matches without a win in all competitions. This is the second time in club history that it's happened. Interestingly, the only other time was 2021, by no means a bad season, but just from May to July, SAFC, and this was particularly at a time when PC was out injured and before Mohamed Abu had gotten signed, because he got signed in July of that season. SAFC just kind of didn't have that midfield enforcer, and so they were struggling to have control of matches. But I mean, that was earlier in the season. I don't know that SAFC really has much more time to try and bring guys in to reinforce, to spark things back to life. Because for anyone who remembers that run in 2021, after that, things got better for SAFC. Things clicked. They added some really good guys, like I said, Abu, Courtney Ford. I think later in that season, like it changed the trajectory, and SAFC was a penalty shootout away from being in the final. So, yeah, not the best run for SAFC. And little sneak peek: if SAFC doesn't win this next match, Yamosa sets, or under Yamosa, SAFC sets a new record for most matches without a win. It's never been more than 7. I will end on a small positive note. Weird as it is, SAFC is 5 matches unbeaten on the road now, technically, for what that's worth. I mean, now, of course, they go home this week to play New Mexico United, so I'm sure it'll be even worse than usual.
Well, who may be imploding worse than SanAntonio FC right now, to be fair? Now, New Mexico does seem to have SanAntonio FC's number this year. Rafa, your final thought? Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I was just going to say, you guys were talking about something, and I looked at the standings, and there are 3 teams in the Western Conference that do not have a single win in their last 5 matches, at least in the league. SAFC and New Mexico are 2 of them. So it's going to be an interesting match, because these are 2 teams that a couple months ago were like probably 1 and 2 in the West, 2 and 3 in the West. Man, they have really fallen out. New Mexico in particular, obviously, and SAFC to a certain extent as well. And New Mexico, I think, was in 7th or 8th. SAFC could be there shortly if things don't start getting better in the next week or 2.
Rafa, your final thoughts on Detroit before we move to a couple of quick hits, or at least one quick hit?
Just like I said, we're lucky to have a point out, because like I said, I think that was a game we circled back that probably would be a loss. This is the atmosphere, but to get a point, great. We got to go. Still, like I said, it's still more room for improvement, but we'll see about that. So hey, we got a point. We'll move forward.
So the final one here, Team of Decade member Tani Olawasi joins La Liga's Villarreal CF. And if you follow them on Twitter, and I'm assuming other social medias, they are promoting this here. It was a transfer from Minnesota United, reportedly around $7 million. Rafa, your thoughts on Tani going to a league that you know very, very well, La Liga?
Well, congratulations to him. He's going to play in La Liga, one of the best leagues in Europe. It's a great opportunity for him. He's going to be part of a real good competitive club, Villarreal, or the Yellow Subs, as they call them. But he does well. Yep, he gets to play with them, and I guess when he play against my team, hopefully he doesn't do anything. I'm sure Mbappe will show him a little things here and there, but I don't mind him scoring a bunch of goals on Barcelona, as I said, and Atletico Madrid, who are tanking right now. But like I said, you got to be proud, So for him to come, like I said, from SAFC to now to go to Europe, like I said, it's kind of like with Gallegos and with also Sam Adidrin. We have 3 players there, like I said, that have European connections. or maybe more. I don't know if I'm missing out. Those are the three off my head. So, but good for him. Like I said, I think he'll be the first player from SAFC that's going to be playing Champions League. So it should be fun for him.
We'll see if he. Do you think he'll? He's not. He's not. Do you think he's a starter or more of a role player?
No, he'll be a role player. You may see him play more games like with Copa del Rey, possibly maybe some of the lower table teams, maybe like a Real Oviedo, those type. Maybe he may may see some Champions League depending if they're getting blown out or they're winning ahead. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably get in a couple of games, but I do see him if he's going to start. I want to be surprised if he starts at a Copa del Rey game.
Jonathan, your thoughts?
If for what it's worth, Tony is. I mean, he turned 25 a couple months ago, so he doesn't necessarily need to hit the ground running. And like we've said, Rafa was talking about all the players in Europe, but to me, this is different in a couple ways. But for one, just talking about the other players that are there, I was thinking to myself, Jose Gallegos or another USL export, Milan Oloski, they went to Denmark. Some years ago, Ethan Bryant went to a Belgian club.
Mm-hmm.
This is Villarreal. This is like we were saying, a team in the Big Five leagues, a team that's in the Champions League. This is not
and they
just
paid decent money too. $7 million for an MLS player.
Yeah,
this is not.
Money. Yeah, this is not the same as Gallegos and some of those other moves. It's a little bigger. Now, I would also say the other difference is this is a guy who was just on loan at SAFC, and for me at least, I try not to let SAFC take too much credit. I try not to be like, oh, he learned it all at SAFC. That was the key to. But then I did see it was a Minnesota United fan account
Correct.
that kind of said the SAFC loan was kind of a big thing, and I guess maybe it was just a case of it gave him the game time, and certainly I'm sure got some confidence going if he scored 17 goals, 18 goals in that season, something like that.
Well, we've seen how many of those type of players that come in, FC Dallas, that they come in with the potential but don't live up to it. He came in, he lived up to the potential. From my understanding, he lived up and exceeded the potential because he's also getting national team appearances, believe.
Yeah,
with
Canada.
With Canada, 15 appearances.
So, like I said here, obviously it's not all SanAntonio FC. Don't get me wrong here. He put in the work, but I think Jonathan hits on a key point. It gave him the confidence. It showed that he has the ability to do it. He went to Minnesota, continued to excel, and obviously from a SanAntonio perspective, it was awesome. It was awesome to see him play. To me, he was one of those players, kind of like if you're old school like me, Sebastian Igabaga, when he was with SAFC, you could tell he was destined for higher places, and the same thing with Tani for that here. Any other final thoughts before we get to actual final thoughts on the show here? Because like I said, that's what I got. I know we play New Mexico. I'll probably see if I can get on with Somos Mas, or not Somos Mas, United Front, bad Harry, United Front to kind of discuss with them. I know New Mexico, kind of like SAFC, maybe having coaching growing pains in the locker room, for that here where things aren't meshing for that here. And I know we already touched base on it, but any final thoughts before we go into final thoughts of the show? Nope. Okay. My final thoughts. Club soccer season's kicked off. If you're a fan, be careful what you say for it, especially with the ARs, and especially if it's young ARs. From my understanding, at least with WDDOA, and this should really go through here. But if there is a young and meaning under 18 AR that's on the sideline, they are listening very carefully of what you're saying. So just be careful what you say. Show them the respect, and that should go for any AR or center ref along those lines here. But if it's a youngster that's out there trying to grow the game, trying to develop along those lines here, give them some grace. I know it's sometimes hard to bite the lip. I know there were a couple of fights at multiple games with between the club teams, and it's just because the kids have passion. They are, they feed off the crowd. So if the crowd starts chirping a lot more, they start chirping a lot more, and it feeds off on that. So for club parents, just be careful. Set a good example for our young men and women. For the up and coming aspiring ARs, if you are getting verbal abuse, and Rafa can probably correct me if I'm wrong, let your center ref know, and they will handle it, or hopefully they'll handle it, or it'll get documented. I know we got a sideline warning our second match. That wasn't me because I was out chasing balls for that here, so it wasn't me. I will go chase balls so that way I'm not near the crowds, because I am one that will chirp, and especially if it's between visiting team, home team, parents go at it. I typically am not very shy, we'll say, on letting things slip. So I have learned to stand behind the goals, back, chase balls, to keep myself out of trouble.
They don't sign a parent conduct form.
Oh, you sign one. But
no. Well, I enforce
I signed
mine.
one for high school. Do I read it? No.
No, I enforce mine. Like I said, the only chirping out.
Like Coach talked about it.
Yeah. The only thing they're gonna be doing is this. That's it. The only chirping of the ref's gonna be me. That's about it. And I knew all the time.
We know that doesn't happen though. We know that doesn't happen. So, just please, and this goes when I know this is an SA Soccer Roundtable. Something we try to emphasize with the high school players, and I know a lot of these players are high school or younger. Just please, as parents, if you go to Toyota Field, they're professional referees. You still shouldn't be dogging them, a lot, but they get paid. They hear worse stuff, just through there. So, but if you, especially I shouldn't say for young ones, but I know they are focusing on the young ones, because the problem is, and I'll use AJ as an example. He doesn't want to do it because of, and he took the classes, he has the licenses, but he doesn't want to do it just because he doesn't want to face the crowds that he's seen. Jonathan or Rafa, who wants to go first? Who wants to go last? Jonathan, you're next.
All right. I guess final thoughts.
I don't think we have enough finals there, buddy.
Well, sometimes I feel like we sure do have a lot of final thoughts. Just saying. Oh boy, what is it? What'd someone say?
Royce, you're on.
Oh boy. Oh, cool.
Well, we're on final thoughts. So if you want to give your final. Dude, we're at 54 minutes.
You missed
I'm
the
getting
final,
this out
Harry,
under an hour. You're going to push this over an hour, and I blame Royce.
All Royce's fault.
There for their goal, Jorge put away a really nice penalty. As for game flow, we showed a little promise in that first half, but good Lord, that second half was a drag. That was just awful. I don't know what y'all had to say about it. It looked like we kind of sat back and invited the pressure. And we invited the pressure with a very inexperienced midfield, which I think is a recipe for disaster. And I think that's 2 games in a row where Yamosa's kind of let Landry out there to dry, which the first one was he had Barone and Landry out on that left wing. Landry kind of let his defensive marker go right by him, and that kind of put a 2-on-1 with Barone, who was already on a yellow. So he thought he needed to do a pullback, professional foul to stop the threat. to possibly lose that match, and that's why he got that second yellow. So not great there. And then the second one obviously was the handball that happened right in front of the box that turned into the Detroit goal in this game. So um, we also talked. I'm sure y'all talked about it, but we talked subbing out. Substitution seems to be an issue with Yamosa. I know it was a big complaint with Marcina and the Marcina era, and they seem to kind of be persistent as well with Yamosa, and Yamosa kind of being an inexperienced head coach. I'm not saying he's an inexperienced coach, but an inexperienced head coach may need to pull that trigger a little quicker. But um, a draw on the road is not a bad thing. Detroit is a good side. The East is definitely better than the West this year, and Detroit is a decent team in the East. That being said, like I said, the first half there's some promise with the new kid, Linhares, and you open up some space. We'll see if we can continue that and kind of hone it in. This season's not over by any stretch of the imagination. We can get hot and we can go into the playoffs. We're still in the playoff position. So this thing could get running and we can get really hot and go into the playoffs really nice. Or we could just flop. Or we can continue where we're at. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Things need to be learned. And it'll be interesting to see what happens these next. What do we have? 8 games left?
9.
9 games left? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We have not scored a goal in the run of play in, what's the stat, Harry? 4.5 games?
Yeah, I think it would be 4.5 at this point. Don't know the exact
Right.
number. Also,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, before this Jorge goal, the last one was scored by Baron, so technically like a defensive midfielder.
That's
It was
tough.
the
Yeah.
match. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the match before that
Making a
the
late
keeper
run.
actually scored. So
Yeah. Oh. Oof. Yeah. Uh-oh. But at the same rate, all those matches have not been losses. A majority have been ties. So, yeah, if we get this thing going, we get playoff Patino going. We might be all right, but we got to figure this thing out. We got to figure it out quickly because we're really leaving our goalkeeper to dry, as we've seen with Sanchez, and Namani's really stepped up and looked nice. But honestly, the reason we salvaged a draw in Detroit is Mitch and Namani were unbelievable in the back. So we'll see what happens. This will be a very interesting stretch. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And for final thought, be prepared when your power goes out, because you never know. Luckily, we have some supplies that help us out, but yeah, that kind of stunk to get everything going. But anyway, hope everybody's having a nice, safe Labor Day weekend. Hope everyone's enjoying it. Obviously, tomorrow is our day off. Remember what Labor Day is about, and that's that's for the worker. That is thank a union member, thank a union for Labor Day, and the fact that we get to appreciate that day off to remember that we're the workers, and the workers in this country have the power. Back to you, Harry.
I think Harry's mic's off.
for the better.
As it should be.
Let's back to Jonathan for his final thoughts. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, it actually kind of worked out that I made that joke about having many rounds of final thoughts because there's a nice little stall for Royce to come in. Okay, yeah, so I think Royce had said, it's going to be an interesting stretch here at the end of the season, but even just forgetting interesting stretch, well, I will say SAFC's talked about, yeah, we want to turn things around and, enter, have a good run here to end the season, and this season strong, enter the playoffs strong. But like I said earlier, actions speak louder than words. They've talked about putting in a complete 90-plus minute performance, and we're still not really seeing that. So, I mean, I don't want to say shut up and prove it, but it seems fitting. But even just focusing in on this next match, one match, like we were saying earlier, SAFC and New Mexico have not been on good runs. SAFC is back to playing at home, and for whatever reason, they have not been good at home this year. I think they've already pretty much set a record for the most home losses in a year. I don't know what it is. Just they talk about the pressures of being in front of the home fans and having to deliver and all that. You got to turn around. It's almost this weird situation where I started thinking yesterday, does SAFC want to finish like 6th, 7th, 8th in the conference? Because at home they're not getting it done. It's not clicking. But away, maybe it gives them a little more space to operate. I don't know. We'll see.
Playing at Tulsa, no offense to all my Tulsa friends, is probably a little bit more attractive than finishing 7th and playing at Sac Republic.
Yeah, and these are based on the standings now. I think it's fair to say we kind of expect Tulsa to finish first at this point, but from 2nd to 12th, it's all up in the air the way the West is this year. But yeah, so two teams that are not in good form. It's going to be an interesting match this Saturday. I will also say, make sure you, if you can, unless you absolutely have to leave early, stick around, or maybe don't stick around, because that's when New Mexico tends to burn SAFC this year. I think it's
final 10 minutes.
four goals in stoppage time. It's second half stoppage time in both cases. 2 goals to snatch the win in New Mexico, 2 goals to rescue a draw in the Jägermeister Cup, even though they didn't end up advancing. They forced a penalty shootout, and all of a sudden, SAFC could have gone through that group stage just cruising, could have had a perfect record, could have not even conceded a goal, and then all of a sudden you're walking out of that match saying, oh, that really turned south quickly. You're a little concerned, and let's be real, that was kind of when a lot of this started. You can argue maybe some signs in the match before the break, but it's really since that mental health break that SAFC has been really just not clicking. It's not coming together. So interesting match on Saturday. Stick around until the end. Don't stick around. Avoid the pain of conceding more late goals against New Mexico. Whatever floats your boat. Other than that, I don't know. 9 matches left. Ball's in your court, SAFC. Whatever you want to do.
I'm going to interrupt since Royce interrupted us. UTSA on Thursday plays UIW at Toyota Field. I know they had 3,100 at Park West for that here. So if you can, please go out and support UTSA women's soccer. I know they lost a tough one on the road to Colorado State. I think it was Thursday, and then today I think they got a 0-0 draw against Colorado College in the Colorado Springs for that here. So for UTSA women's soccer versus UIW, Toyota Field. I believe it's a 6 o'clock kickoff if memory serves me correct, 6:30 for that here. If you have the capability, please go out and support the UTSA women's team, women's and UIW's team, because they are local as well, for that here. Rafa, your final thoughts?
Final thoughts, like I said, like Jonathan mentioned, if you're gonna talk the talk, better walk the walk. This team needs they got to play with some balls. That's no ifs, ands, or buts. I like to see the change of tactics. Play the game. No, the game. Someone put down about the game. The game. There is, I think, $10 tickets there for the game at Toyota for the UIW's UTSA game. But going back to the New Mexico game, they have to go after them, and you got to go after them if they're hurting right now. What you got to go after them. You got, and that game that we kind of gave up in the cup game, that should be a reminder to say, hey, you know what, we need to finish games, and we need to put these guys out of misery and
Rafa,
yes,
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt real quick. The game's at 6:30. Tickets are $10 plus fees.
yeah, and they are gonna charge for parking, just to give you a heads up. So park under the bridge for free. So like I said, I want to see an aggressive, go after them style of game. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like I said, I won't be there at the game, but like I said, FTC and H210 will. The guys, the team owes it to us. Hey, got to give an effort. And the fans want to see something. One game can change things around, and better way to start is this New Mexico game, and then take it from there.
All right, well, I'm calling it 107. I blame Royce. I had it on pace to be at 60 minutes or less. Royce wanted to crash the party late, giving the excuse that, hey, the power's out. But I'm glad Royce and Susie and the family safe for here. Matt, unfortunately, was unable to join us, but he did express some happiness about SAFC as well for that here. So should be a fun game against New Mexico United. They're always fun and chippy. Comes through, and for SAFC, I have a feeling they probably got this one circled, and to see if they can get that mojo turned around. But what's life? We are out.